Welcome to the Get Involved Utah podcast with your host, Elaine Moore.
Where no election topic is off limits.
Get informed now.
Thank you for listening to the Get Involved Utah podcast. This episode is going to discuss the Washington County Commission meeting held today, July 19th, regarding the recount and the certification of the canvass that happened during the primary election. If you're not familiar with Washington County races, the race for House District 72 with Joseph Elison and Willie Billings had a difference of 7 votes. Yep, 7 votes. In Utah, you have to have 0.25% difference in the votes to get a recount, and this is automatically done. This meeting today was about this recount, and then they went ahead and certified the canvass, making the 2022 Washington County primary election official. This recount took place last week because of the way they sort the ballots. They had to run every single ballot through the machines again, and that's how they did the recount. There was a group of citizens, including the candidate Willie Billings, who wanted to have a hand recount, and that was also something that was done on this Monday, July 18th, and they took 3% of the ballots, and they did a similar process to the public audit. I am having a podcast on the public audit that will be coming out soon, and you can learn more about that process. But I'm just going to go over briefly what happens this year. So this year they have a software that the state uses. And remember, this is all done at the state level. None of this is the county. The state decides what is audited. And they did the same thing with this hand recount. They used the same software, randomized the batches. And then they took those batch numbers. And those were the ballots that they went and they looked at for this hand recount. So when they sort the ballots in Washington County, we learned from Susan Lewis in the County Commission meeting that unlike some other counties where they sort by races, for instance, House races, they actually do not do that. As the ballots come in, they're put into batches of 50. So every 50 ballots that come in the order they come in, they're put into a box. It's completely random. It's just as they come in. Let's listen to Susan Lewis explain this. And then Commissioner Iverson is going to also make sure we understand how this process works as the ballots come in and go into batches.
So we have never sorted the ballots as they come in by House district. So when we got a request for a recount for District 72, we needed to not just recount District 72. We had to recount the whole election, meaning we looked at every ballot needed to be rerun. All of the envelopes needed to be relooked at, all of the provisional ballots, all that, everything. You start and do the whole thing over again.
So Susan, one thing that I didn't know about that is as the ballots come in, you batch them in 50s, right?
Correct.
And it's
So just to be clear, the batches in Washington County are in 50. When they come in, they're stacked 50, then 50, then 50. It's completely random. They are not sorted. And if you listen to the full clip, Susan Lewis, the Washington County clerk, explains this, that if they were going to sort them, they would, one, have to have machinery, which they discussed in that meeting, that they are looking for in the future to get sorting machinery, but they would have had to decide to sort this before the election. I personally think it's a great idea for them to come in that way. I see how that does cause a little bit of an issue when you want to do a recount or want to audit a specific race. However, that's how it's done. Every box of 50 can have any precinct in Washington County. It can have any precinct. It can have any city. It can have any race because it's completely random. That's very important. One thing that the candidate for House 72, Willie Billings, was able to speak, and the thing that concerned him about the hand recount was it didn't represent the election, because if this is randomized ballots, because they're randomly put in these batches, nothing's sorted, then they used a randomizer. The state election office used software to randomize which batches are picked. So it's completely random. Any box can be picked out of the 100, and I think she said 138. I have to double check that number. Any of those can be picked, and then they count those ballots in that box for race 72. Of course, every single race is read off as they go down the list, and they double check it. And in this hand recount, it was about 3% of the ballots that they chose. They then took those ballots and they looked at what was in the machines. I'm guessing the cast vote record, not the ballot image, but it could be the ballot image. They weren't very specific. So it could be both the ballot image and cast vote record like they did this year on the public audit. They would compare that with the ballot and make sure they match. Now, Susan Lewis is very clear that this hand recount had nothing to do with totals. They were only looking at, does the ballot match what's in the machine? Fair enough. But if you're going to do a recount, as Willie Billings pointed out in the commission meeting, why aren't you counting and tallying those ballots, and why does that have no importance? Let's listen to Willie Billings' comments about this hand recount and why he found it concerning.
Okay, I'm going to take a point of privilege, I guess. Willie, if you can make your comment or question like within 2 minutes max, then we're not going to open this up into a public hearing.
Chairman?
Yes,
No one on
absolutely.
Zoom can hear him.
Yeah.
Be on the
All right, nobody on Zoom can hear. So could you come to the mic, Willie?
Thank you, Commissioners. First off, anything that's said or done in this has no bearing on the county or the county personnel. They are of utmost integrity. Yeah, we're not questioning them at all. When they did and it was named on the website as a recount audit, okay? And when we got there, they did compare the dots on the paper to the dots on the electronic version, and we're convinced that data transferred over, but there was no counting that took place of that. And I know that they're saying that wasn't our purpose, but if you're going to do an audit recount and you're going to verify that the data was transferred, but you don't have a simple database built into that program that will count those votes, what was the purpose then? Because we had two separate people that were doing that recount, watching the screen, listening and accounting for every single vote by every candidate in every race. And they compared those notes, and this is what you received part of this. And the anomaly here is that out of the 21 ballots, I believe, Elison won 4 batches and I won 15, and we tied on 2. Statistically, when you do a 1% random sample, that doesn't work out, but they did a 3% random sample, which is 3 times larger than the normal to get that type of random sample. And it included all of the precincts. Like we saw precinct, we saw Tokerville, we saw Laverton, we saw Herrick, we saw everything was represented in that count. And I won with 138 votes, and he won with 89, so that's a 60-40 split. That anomaly is not small. If that was 1 or 2%, we'd go, okay. But it's 20%. That is, you can't ignore that. You can't just say, oh, well. Okay, something deeper has to be looked into that. And to finalize my comments here, I want it clear that I am not doing this to win this election. Would I love to win? So bad my teeth ache. Okay? But the reality is there's mass dissent in Washington County and across the country of lack of voter faith and trust in our election systems, and specifically in machines. And as leadership, it's our responsibility not just to legislate. It's to listen to the constituents, listen to the people out there, and do everything possible to help facilitate trust, respect, and confidence in our election processes. If we don't do that, we are not doing our jobs. And so a recount doesn't mean I'm going to win. I may get less votes. I'm clear of that. But I'm okay losing this election. I'm not okay. I would have been okay until they canvassed this, until that audit took place. And when it went from I'm down by 7 votes to I won by 20% on a 3% random thing across the county, I think we need to look into this deeper, do another one. And if they had counted those votes and their count was equal to this count, we'd say, okay, they're the same. They didn't. They can't even count them. and their software.
So for those that understand random samples, that this is random sample of ballots put into batches with a random sample selected from that random sample. They read them off and they come up with about a 60-40 split. 60% for Willie Billings, 40% for Joseph Elison for House District 72. Why is that important? It seems a little different. Why are we not concerned about those numbers? Well, they keep telling you there's nothing to be concerned about because of precincts. When precincts vote, of course you're going to have precincts with more information. The problem is there's no factor of precincts, 0 factor of precincts in this sample. The sample is random. It means every single precinct has an equal chance of being in that sample. And you see that because when you get deeper into the commission meeting, the candidate Willie Billings explains maybe in a batch of 50, you're only pulling, 10 to 12 that voted in his race that are in his district. In this commission meeting, the county attorney, Washington County attorney, and the commissioners all talk about how, as a county, they do not have the power they need to investigate, to look at, or to be able to take the people's concerns in the manner that they ask for and address them in that manner without the permission of the state. That's a problem for Utah. That's a problem for Washington County, but it's a problem for every county in Utah. Thank you for listening to the Get Involved Utah podcast. I hope you will join us again. We're going to go into this commission meeting even more. I have other podcasts I have been working on for many months. You can also subscribe to my website and get access to grammar requests and other research documents, videos, and other things I am working to put together. So go to getinvolvedutah.com, sign up for a free account, or you can donate and become a sponsor, and you get some exclusive content that will be coming later this summer.
Thank you for listening to the Get Involved Utah podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe if you haven't already. Learn more at getinvolvedutah.com. Follow us on Telegram at Get Involved Utah. As a 501c4 nonprofit, all our efforts are funded by your donations. Donate by using the link in the description.